This is Jeremy here on Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What we have for today, guys, is another album review. Pretty high anticipated album in the metal scene. It's the newest from Nightwish, entitled Yesterwynde. It's their 10th studio album, released through Nuclear Blast Records. It's 71 minutes in length and 12 tracks in total. A disclaimer before I kind of get into the review. My general taste in metal isn't symphonic really at all. So it's not the kind of music I really gravitate towards, and I don't really listen to it often. But I did do kind of a small dive into Nightwish a couple of years ago on my channel. I reacted to a bunch of their videos, and I really dug what I heard. The vocals were top notch. The guitars were heavy in parts. They had kind of a blend of heaviness and like symphonic elements. I kind of really dug it. It was a different sound than I'm used to, but a lot of the tracks I really liked. Ghost Love Score, still to this day, I think is my favorite Nightwish song performed by Floor at the 2012, I think it was. Wacken Open Air, that's I think their best performance of all time. But I think a lot of those songs sounded heavier live, because a lot of the ones I checked out were live, not the studio versions. I think they kind of had a heavier feel on live. And I kind of noticed that going into listening to this album. I really wanted to check it out still and give it a try. Like I said, I'm more into thrash and death metal, and more kind of a more aggressive style of metal. And I find symphonic metal and power metal and things like that to be a little bit too over the top for me sometimes, and kind of takes away from the heaviness and the things I like about metal. But let's jump into the album. I'll give my overall thoughts. Standout tracks for me, I think the second half of the album was stronger in my opinion. There's a lot of tracks I enjoyed more. The Spider Silk, really good song. One of the songs that kind of had a much heavier sound to it, and the vocals were more aggressive as well. I really dug that song. Really nice, but still maintained the cinematic and kind of, symphonic elements. And then the next one, I'm not sure if it's High Wraith or High Wrath. I really enjoyed that song as well. It might be one of my favorite songs. Really rocking at the beginning, nice groove to it, just a rocking song. Really good high-end vocals from Floor. And then near the end of the song, it really picked up the heaviness, and I really dug it. Nice vocals on this song, great composition. Just a well-written song, not too long. And I really dug that song, one of my favorites. The Weave was another song that was really a nice song, really heavy. Had a little bit more heaviness to it, not too long, about 5 minutes long. Again, it had a little more heaviness in the guitars and the drums, and kind of wasn't so focused on the symphonic elements quite as much as some of the other songs. And then the last song, Lantern Light, really beautiful song. Her vocals on this song are incredible. So crisp and so like clear and controlled. Just a beautiful song, full of emotion and storytelling. Really love that song, really nice, beautiful song. The opening track, Yesterwynde, was kind of more of an intro. I'm not a big intro guy on albums, but this one kind of sets the pace and kind of gives you a feeling of what to expect during the album. Very epic, very cinematic. And then it goes right into a 9.5 minute epic, The Ocean of Strange Islands. I really dug this song, had a nice variety to it, very epic and cinematic, but had some guitars mixed in there. And right around the 7-minute mark, Floor hits this like super powerful note, like big note, and then it has this really crunchy guitar riff, and then it kind of fades down and kind of seems like it stops. And then a second later kind of picks up again. And I believe the instrument I'm hearing is bagpipes, possibly. I'm not sure what it is. It might just be like a synth or something. But that kind of carries out the rest of the song for the last couple minutes. For me personally, I would have ended the song at that closing point after the heavy guitar riff kicks in and kind of, faded out to a stop. To me, that was the more logical ending point to that song. But personally, I would have shaved off a couple minutes at the end. The song The Day Of was a song that I didn't really like as much. It didn't really stand out to me as much after listening to the album a couple times. It's not one I really remembered as much or went back to. And the song Sway, number 6, what probably was my least favorite track on the album. It just had a different vibe to it, a different sound. And I just wasn't digging it as much. It didn't quite connect with me as much as the other songs. Perfume of the Timeless was a really good song. Really good composition, and again, 2/3 of the way through the song, It picked up some steam and got some heaviness to it. I really dug that song. A little bit longer, but really good tune. Overall, I'd say standard tracks were Perfume of the Timeless, Spider Silk, High Wraith, and probably Lantern Light are my favorite songs on the album. Negatives of the track, Sway was one I didn't really like that much, and The Day Of was kind of just for me. It didn't really stick with me as much as the other songs. The Yesterwynde opener, I could have take it or leave it. It's a good way to set the album and set the pace, but I'm not a big intro kind of guy, and I think that could have been left off, to be honest. And positives of the album, Floor's vocals are through the roof, crazy on this album, all over the place. So much control and range and power. She's got some grittiness to her voice in a couple of the songs, which I really liked. The composition is top tier. A lot of times when I was listening to this, it doesn't really remind me of like listening to like a metal album. It's kind of like listening to a soundtrack to like a historical movie like Braveheart or Gladiator, that kind of thing. It's a very epic and cinematic. It's kind of, I could picture myself listening to this music and seeing like the beautiful landscapes and stuff, and in a movie, that kind of movie. That's kind of what it reminds me of listening to more. And like I said, composition is through the roof, very intelligent layering and song composition. I really enjoyed it. Vocals are crazy. Instrumentation's really good, but the negative of this subgenre, not necessarily this album, but symphonic metal in general, I find probably the reason I don't go back to it as much is the core elements, the core instruments of the band, like the drums and guitars, kind of get lost in the mix sometimes over the cinematic and like symphonic elements. I find there's a little bit too much focus on those elements, and it kind of drowns out the kind of the core of the music. And for me, being a thrash head and into death metal and traditional metal, you really miss sometimes those crunchy guitar riffs, and there is some of that in these songs, but I find the synths and like the cinematic elements and the keyboards kind of really drown that stuff out and kind of overpower it. And after a amount of time, I find myself missing those riffs and the heaviness. But I don't think that's a downfall to this album. I think I don't like it with the subgenre as a whole. I don't really have any other negatives of the album. I really like the album artwork. It's really cool. Kind of looks like a travel through time kind of feel. Really suits the music. I like the album cover a lot. I love the vocals. Composition's really good. A couple songs I could do without. I think the length of the album's a little long, 71 minutes. I think they cut off like maybe two tracks and brought it down to just under an hour. I think it would have been better. But overall, really solid album. Rating, it's really hard. If I rate it on my scale of what I like in metal generally, I'd probably give it a 7.5. If I rate it on a symphonic metal scale, 9.5. They executed perfectly. The sound is all there. Exactly what you want from this style of music. But for me personally, it's just not my personal preference of metal overall. But when I do have the craving for this style of metal, this is the band I always go to. When I want to have that experience of kind of being taken away on an adventure and an experience, and just kind of, it's kind of a different vibe than listening to like a Slayer album or something. It's kind of more of a headphones album. You just kind of get taken away, and it's like an adventure and like a experience. But when I do feel like listening to this, when I have that itch to listen to that kind of metal, Nightwish 9 times out of 10 is what I reach for. So they executed perfectly. Like I said, for a symphonic metal album, 9.5. It's epic and really, really good. But in my scale of metal, just based on my personal taste, I'd probably give it a 7.5. Is it an album I would listen to all the time? No. Is it an album if I'm really craving that kind of music? Will I play it? 100%. So let me know down below, guys, what you thought of the album. I think it's a really great, really good album. I think if I listen to it more, it might grow on me a little bit more, but like I said, it's just not my overall subgenre of metal that I prefer. But I try to keep an open mind and give it a chance. Like I said, for a symphonic metal album, they executed perfectly, but it's just not my overall favorite sound of metal. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more great content. Until next time, keep it metal.